Thanks for choosing us. Let's begin with GCB, which moves to rebrand collapsed UT and Capital banks after historic acquisition. Staff and customers of both banks on edge. We'll hear from the central bank, which is urging calm, Security and Exchange Commission suspends UT Bank from the stock exchange. We've got analysis on this unfolding story for you, including what the future is going to be like for GCB after these acquisitions. And mind you, there are 7 more banks set to be in distress. What's going to happen to them? We'll bring you the details shortly.
This is a purchase and assumption, an appointment of a receiver. When you liquidate a bank, nobody takes over any asset, nobody takes over any liability. You sell the assets to pay the liabilities. That is liquidation.
But the bank is not going to exist any longer. If you go through your laws itself, the Banking Act itself, what it specifies is clearly a liquidation.
It's not. That's what I've explained to you. Find out the difference between a liquidation and a purchase and assumption transaction. The two are different. If I form a bridge bank, I can collapse. If I form a bridge bank, I can take the bank, change the name, and I will withdraw the license of the revoked bank. If I merge a bank, I can revoke the license of the old one and merge it with the two. So revocation comes in different forms, right?
How sound are the other 7 banks that were initially captured in this audit report as we speak right now? Aren't we going to see another action again or a similar purchase agreement happen to 2 other banks?
No.
So all these 7 banks are safe?
No. We have explained, the governor explained, for 5 of them, they have met the capital adequacy. So what is the big deal for them?
So all these other banks are sound?
Yes. I mean, definitely.
We won't see any arrangement where another bank will be merged into GCB's fold?
No. Don't forget that a shareholder can decide, right? We are not going to get ourselves involved in another P&A agreement. But a shareholder can decide and say that, look, I want my bank to be acquired. I can't prevent that.
But I believe that I said now those engagements has been done by the Bank of Ghana between the said banks.
We have not done any engagement for acquisition by anybody.
I come back to the question about trust and information, because before this, we got the assurance again that everything was under control.
No, I mean, look, we have given you that that is why I'm saying that. We told you that the banks have submitted plans, we are monitoring and getting there. If you submit a plan and the plan is credible, what stops me from telling you that the plan is credible and then go ahead? But where you can't fulfill the terms and conditions of the plan, or you bring the plan and I find the plan not to be credible, I can't sit down and wait for the bank to deteriorate further on the assumption that go and tell the public that you have submitted a plan when I know that the plan is not credible.
You initially said that by the end of September you take an action on this. This has happened earlier than the September that the Bank of Ghana projected.
You can avail yourself to section 1063. When I sit down and I realize that the plans you are bringing is not credible and the bank is deteriorating, I have to stop it.
So it was an emergency reaction?
Yeah, no, it's...
Well, George Riafe is with the business desk. He joins me in the studio with more. George, bring us to speed with the background of these 2 banks. I'm talking about the UT Bank and Capital Bank.
So one thing that cuts across all these 2 banks is that they were formerly in a different space, savings and loans and all the microfinance, and then they migrated to become a fully fledged universal bank. Now let's start with Capital Bank. They were savings and loans. They migrated from that to universal banking status. So that was it. And that runs also with UT. It was a microfinance company. It moved on to savings and loans and then also acquired an entity, then became a fully fledged universal bank. Now, these 2 banks, something that was cutting across that they give loans out to businesses. And it looks like at a point in time, they gave this credit more than their net value and all those things. And these credits actually were going bad. They were having difficulties in recovering these loans. And that has implications on the level of capital you can hold as a bank to even still stay in business. Moving on, we understand that even the Bank of Ghana at a point in time had to give them some liquidity support, give them some money to help them still stay in business. Now,
it means they saw this coming.
Well, they saw this coming in the sense that if it was a problem with lack of funds, then the Bank of Ghana should help them with some support, and let's see whether they can still be in business and all those things. So those things actually happen, but it looks like the Bank of Ghana saw that despite all these support, it looks like there isn't light at the end of the tunnel. And if you go through the same Bank of Ghana's act itself, it talks about the fact that after some days, the regulator has to step in and either liquidate these banks or appoint a different institution to actually acquire these two institutions. And that is what the Bank of Ghana actually had to do with respect to this particular situation.
Okay. And I think that there is some soundbite you need to introduce.
So on this particular issue as well, we have some response with respect to industry players on this. And let's watch that one.
If you are a shareholder in UT, you don't necessarily translate into a shareholder of GCB, because GCB has not bought the shares of UT Bank. They have taken over certain liabilities and certain assets of GCB Bank. The two entities in terms of shareholding are completely different. So please bear in mind, if you're a shareholder in UT, you don't necessarily translate into a shareholder of GCB Bank. What GCB did was to take over certain liabilities and selected assets of those two banks. Those licenses have been revoked. There was a question of sanction. Now that the company ceases to exist in terms of the revocation of its license and it cannot operate, there's no point in talking about sanctions going forward, because effectively the highest of the sanctions is to take off the company from the list. And today we have suspended the listing status indefinitely. So that is the highest of sanctions that we can. GCB has taken over certain liabilities and assets of UT Bank, not the shares of UT Bank. The second aspect is what
break it down for them, the deposits.
When I say taking over, they're taking off deposit liability. So if you're a customer and you've deposited money with UT Bank, then from today you become a customer of GCB Bank. If you have certain selected assets that were also taken over by GCB Bank, then those selected assets, I mean, for example, if you're a borrower and that particular aspect is in what GCB has taken over, then you become a borrower as far as GCB is concerned. So all branches of UT Bank now become literally branches of GCB Bank. There was a question of the performance of UT Bank. As at Friday,
GCB Bank will do their press announcement later on.
There was a question as to the price or the performance. I think by Friday, UT Bank was 7 pesos per share. Tracing the events up to this stage, a question about why we didn't act earlier than today. Sometime back, like I said, we wrote to UT Bank and had several discussions. There was a point in time that we suspended trading in UT for the same reason. And like I said, Bank of Ghana required that we closely work with them as far as, in quote, the stability of the financial system is concerned. So from that point, yes, we knew that they were in default, but we had to work closely with Bank of Ghana as far as the process that was concerned. And Governor in his press conference clearly indicated that there were proposals, they requested them to bring proposals, and they brought proposals. Some of them were not credible. At the end of it, GCB's proposal was what was credible, and they accepted GCB.
All right, so that was the managing
director of the Ghana Stock Exchange, Kofi Amoah, explaining to us. Still, it is not clear, Aisha, what is going to happen to shareholders of UT Bank that were listed on the Ghana Stock Exchange.
Because we had the Ghana Stock Exchange.
Yeah, trying to give some explanation that the receiver is going to take these shares. GCB is not acquiring the shares of UT Bank. So it means that it's still not clear what is going to happen to you if you have about 20,000 worth of shares or 20,000 Ghana cedis in UT Bank that was listed on the Ghana Stock Exchange. What we understand right now is that it has been stopped. They can trade on the market again. But let's still...
the word they use is indefinitely.
Yeah, so it means they are off the market.
Exactly.
And so there wouldn't be opportunity for anybody to try and maybe get out of the market or price on this development and all those things. But let's also get to the Bank of Ghana. And this development will actually mean or have some implications for staff going forward. Right. It looks like the Bank of Ghana has confirmed that, yes, going forward, there could be some staff layoff. Let's listen or watch Raymond Amanfo. He is head of banking supervision at the Bank of Ghana.
All right.
I'm not aware that I don't know whether
forget about them, Dale, but what will happen to the staff and even in terms of all the branches as well?
No, I think we have said that for the first 3 months up to 6 months, they are retaining all branches and they will manage all the staff. Now they've given a timetable of how many branches they can contain, because don't forget that some of these branches are very close to other GCB offices, and it doesn't make economic sense to have 2 branches, let's say, on the same road. It doesn't. So definitely some branches, a few of the branches will be closed or will merge with GCB branches. Now, if you merge with a GCB branch, of course, you need more staff in that GCB branch. You know, because the volume of work goes up. They may take some staff, they may lay some off. Well, that is the truth of the matter. And that is why we said that in the selection of the assuming bank, you also have to consider how many staff are they possible they can take. What are the proportions of various bidders? And you decide on all this mix of.
So what happens to has the shares of GCB responded to?
Well, Aisha,
in
other developed markets, news about this acquisition that would increase the value, the net worth of GCB. So obviously, you could see shareholders rushing to get shares of GCB, but it looks like that has not been that on the market. It's still flat at 5 Ghana cedis there, 14%. So let's look at what would happen tomorrow, whether the share price could actually go up substantially or not, or people would want to get a bite of GCB because of what has happened right now. And so it's very, very interesting, some will say, and people will be watching closely what is going to happen on the stock market with respect to whether their value is going to go up or not.
Well, the GCB says that it's investigating the 2 banks, and have we heard anything?
Well, it's still, the investigation we understand is still ongoing. Who are those people who caused this? Are there any assets under these 2 banks that have been hidden from them? So it looks like it's work in progress. They want to get those fine details because they are saying that, listen, we've taken over the good assets of the bank, so no one can hide or no one should try and hide anything from us.
Well, I know it will be unfolding. I mean, from today we'll
the development will just not end. There will be more developments coming out of this. One of the biggest issues in the financial sector. The last time we saw such a thing with one bank was during the 80s or even the late 70s.
Exactly. So this certainly is one of the biggest hits in the banking sector. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much,
George Weafe is with the business there. So we've not ended this yet because I'll have a labor expert join me in the studio shortly. But before that, officials of the Dome branch of UT Bank, now acquired by the GCB Bank, on Monday extended banking hours to 6 p.m. This was to make up for time lost after the bank opened quite late for business at about 2:30 p.m. However, the bank was virtually empty at the time Love News Prince Appiah visited Monday.
Clients have been trooping in and they are worried because the information that they reach out to them before that banks will not operate in the early hours of the morning until the afternoon. Around 2:30 p.m. this afternoon, UT Bank opened, and around 3:30 Capital Bank also opened here in Edum. And for UT Bank, they have sent messages around to their clients and customers telling them that they are going to work right from the 2 p.m. till 6 p.m.
Bank of Ghana has announced just a percentage of the workers in both banks will be laid off. We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll bring you that interview with a labor consultant. Welcome back to Joiners Prime. Now to the rest of our stories. Meanwhile, Bank of Ghana has announced just a percentage of the workers in both banks will be retained by the GCB Bank. This gives an indication a fraction of the workers will be laid off. What is the right way to do this? Labour consultant Ben Arthur joins me in the studio, and also Kofi Kapito, who is the Executive Secretary of Consumer Watch, also joins me in the studio. Welcome, gentlemen.
Good evening, Aisha.
Well, let me start with you.
You've demoted me. I'm not the Executive Secretary. I'm the Chief Executive Officer.
The Chief Executive. Thanks so much for the correction. Let me start with Ben Arthur. Yeah. Ben, this comes at the back of concerns of the skyrocketing unemployment rates in the country, and waking up to news that some other people are going to lose their jobs. This certainly comes in a bad taste, I guess.
Well, definitely. You know, when the earlier announcement came that people will not be affected, I smiled off, because that is the usual antics when people are taking over. But the fact is that as soon as there is amalgamation or a takeover or even restructuring of programs, products, or let's say you want to change your technology, definitely people get affected. And in Ghana, I was surprised from all the arguments that have been going on, from all the issues that the Bank of Ghana has related to all of us and the public. I have not heard one key issue. When a bank is going to take over of another bank, definitely the labor issues ought to be, you know, addressed. And under Section 65 of Act 651 of 2003, it demands that anytime there's going to be a contemplation of introducing major production program or anything that entails termination of employment of workers, definitely there's a need to provide in writing to the chief labor officer. And then if they are unionized workers, you also address it to the union leaders for you to see the way forward. And normally one of the things to do is, if you believe that there will be a cessation of the legal, you know, relationship between the employer and the employee, you may have to look at alternative employment. That is one. You just don't go ahead and say that we are laying you off. Because in Ghana, as per our constitution, we see employment as one of the fundamental human rights. Exactly. So our laws do not just permit that, just go ahead and lay people off.
So how should this situation be managed?
Number one, I would want to see if they have written to, that's UT and Capital Bank, the responsibility lies with them to inform the Chief Labor Officer, that's the Ministry of Employment and Labor Relations, that this is the step we have taken. These are the people who have to be affected. We are going to lay this number of workers off. And you have to see whether some can be fixed somewhere. If you cannot fix them somewhere, and it's a complete redundancy, then you ought to sit down and negotiate with the workers as to their redundancy pay. And you have to negotiate, you know, with them whether they are unionized or not. It is mandatory that you do that. If you don't do that, then the workers will take you to National Labour Commission, and that will be further liabilities to the employer as at the time. But it is also the responsibility of Ghana, GCB, is no longer Ghana Commercial
GCB Bank.
It's GCB Bank, to also do what we call labor audit. If they are not going to do it, then I am calling on the Chief Labor Officer on his, you know, office to ensure that labor audit is carried out in these two banks, because you cannot just say that overnight you have been swallowed by another bank or another entity, and for which reason people should begin to recognize you, because people have been relying on the kind of salaries and the benefits that they were, you know, receiving from their employers. But in this case, there are three categories of workers who will not be affected, or who will not be benefiting from the redundancy. Number one has to do with those who are on probation. If you are on probation, it's unfortunate. If you're a casual worker, you will not be affected. And if you're also a contract worker for a specified work or a specified period of time, then you can demand the fact that you have been detrimentally relying on, you know, those services. But you will not be affected by the severance pay.
Okay, we'll get into details because I'm very much interested in that one, because especially if you have a contract with a company and your time is not due, I mean, how does redundancy affect you and all of that? But let me speak with Kofi Kapito. Kofi, it's not only workers who have been affected, it's been customers mostly who are so unhappy about the situation, because you could just tell from the looks on their faces that they did not have any clue of this coming, and so they are unhappy. But one good news is that GCB Bank has assured them that their money is intact, so that should resolve the matter, isn't it?
You know, let me just first by saying that GCB has done a very good job by making sure that every depositor's money is secured and protected.
Okay.
That, don't worry, you can go back tomorrow, withdraw, even if you want all your money or part of your money, and then decides to do business with GCB. My concern was the untimely announcement.
Yes.
Okay, is what I'm worried about. Look, these things happen all over the world, but depositors somehow is aware or are informed either by letters or any form of communication to let them know that maybe come September, this bank is no longer the name that you expect. The name will be changed.
Yes.
But you can still do business with a new bank.
Exactly. So.
And I was a little surprised when people started calling me about the panic that depositors, as your video clip showed, that in Kumasi Edum, where depositors were confused. Yes, hours of opening was a little bit delayed. If you had to transfer money or do some business with the bank between the hours of, let's say, 8:30 a.m. or 9 a.m. till 1 p.m. and even sometimes 3 p.m. What happens if you have a contract to meet? If you have somebody who expects you to send money, credibility can also be at stake here.
Exactly.
Because if you promise to send me money and I'm expecting you to send me the money,
and
because of this, which is not your fault, it makes business a little bit shaky on both the consumer and the producer.
I think this brings back the conversation that consumers or customers must be very careful who they transact businesses with. Going forward, as consumers, how do we do things so that we can avoid some of these situations, so we don't find ourselves in this situation?
This is not something that is not done in any part of the world. I'm just saying that it was a communique that was a problem with it.
Exactly.
In terms of whether acquisitions or whether hostile takeover, it happens in the banking system.
But
all I'm saying is, I think the depositors should have been given a little bit leeway for them to be prepared, especially when it happened on a Monday morning.
That's the reason why, Ben, they can take the banks on because there's what we call pecuniary losses. Because customers couldn't get their monies from morning till about 2 p.m. or something like that, and they went to the bank. Nobody told them anything. They were just stranded over. If it was elsewhere, they could have taken the banks on and they could get some, some compensation for this.
Definitely. Our firm, which is a consultancy called Acrips, is a customer to UT, and I got it from a friend who sent me a WhatsApp, and I said, "Hey, what is this?
What is this?"
So at least, for out of respect, you ought to inform, customers. But I'm tempted to believe that if customers were not informed, depositors or people who are owing the bank or contractors who are doing business with the bank were not informed, then I could possibly believe that some workers, especially the junior staff and the middle staff workers, had not been informed.
They had no clue.
I can bet my last peso on that, because it's been like a strategy to withhold the information that at the end of the day we will be taken by surprise. Because I could just imagine that if we had been informed earlier on a lot of people would have gone there to withdraw their monies, and the whole thing would have been in a mess. So in order to safeguard their interest, they sacrifice ours. But I think anybody who is allowing himself or his entity to be absorbed by any other entity ought to respect customers, because you will not know when you come back. And let me take this opportunity to advise, UT Bank managers. UT Bank is a group, one of which is UT Bank. They have the logistics and insurance and estate and dress. So yes, if you treat customers like this, you must know that you still have the other entities existing, and people will begin to advise themselves. I used to save with GCB Bank, but I moved.
Why? The
reason was simply that I could not endure the long queues. So I decided to go to a bank where I would just spend some few minutes there and turn around. And I could predict that about 50% to 70% of those who have been put on GCB platform will withdraw. It's just like being taken to join a WhatsApp group. Sometimes you decide whether you want to be
let's
part
look at the workers, and I certainly know that a lot of them will have grievances. So workers of these two banks, if they have grievances, who do they channel their grievances to? Should it be the original employer or GCB?
Now, technically speaking, the new employer is GCB. And if there is diminishing of conditions of service, not even just laying them off, if their conditions of service, is reduced in value or in benefits, definitely they have to take the matter up with GCB Bank, because that is the new employer. But of course, if there's any liability as to what was owed them in terms of leave, entitlement, and other benefits, which has not been given to GCB to take over, then the former employer will definitely be liable. But again,
Aisha, you know what is interesting? We have a labor person here, and I'm a little worried because in this country, we've allowed third-party recruitment, where agencies are now the people between the main banks or even the workers. So if the bank doesn't have any direct contract with you,
and you were
you are hired by a third party.
So you have to deal with.
You have to deal with a third party.
In this case, if I may come in, you do not become an employee of the bank.
Yes, you become a contracted,
you are providing service. But let me take this opportunity to re-echo what I have been doing here. That workers must begin to see unionization as very, very important. It is extremely important, especially when issues like this crop up. We had to deal with HFC Bank and drivers and a whole lot of issues. So workers must get their collective actions together. Other than that, if you want to go there and go and negotiate individually, you'll be lost.
It will not work.
You know what is
many
interesting
thanks
about
to
him
you, gentlemen.
Him being a depositor of GCB, and then but the question is
UT Bank.
No, you said you were with GCB,
that's it.
And because of whatever they were doing, so that's why you jumped. But to me, I would rather Ghanaians stick with GCB. At least
it's our bank.
It is our bank.
All right.
Okay. And there's a lot of innovation. I agree with him that some banks have introduced some technology, easy way of access, and I think GCB has all these things. But unfortunately, maybe they need to
improve.
They need to actually make their own statements. Let people know that whatever that any bank is offering, we are also offering the same thing.
I told them you will enjoy
with the new generation, especially the students. You need to attract them with modern stuff so that they'll be able to grow with you as a bank.
All right, many thanks for passing through. Ben Arthur is a labor consultant and Kofi Kapito is the CEO of Consumer Watch. You take a break.
There's a lot of numbers.
Joy News Prime. We'll be back shortly. This is Joy News Prime. Let's move on to other stories. And Ghana is said to have lost a whopping $3 billion in economic activities during the 4-year energy crisis that hit the country. Homes and businesses had to endure several cuts in electricity supply between 2012 and 2016 due to shortfall in electricity supply occasioned by fall in the water levels of the Akosombo Dam, inability of the country to pay for crude to power thermal plants, among others.
Opening the second National Policy Summit in Accra, President Akufo-Addo said the effect of the power outages is the cause of slow growth recorded by industry, collapse of several medium and small-scale industries, and layoff by employers.
In 2015, manufacturing recorded a negative growth of -2%, while mining recorded a negative growth of 3.8%. A significant number of small, medium, and large-scale operators were all brought to their knees as a result of 4 years of dumsor induced by the mismanagement of the energy sector.
President Akufo-Addo, however, announced a 10-point strategy by his government to make Ghana the most business-friendly country in Africa.
Building the competitiveness of existing local industries by facilitating access to medium and long-term financing at low interest rates. 2, implementing the One District, One Factory initiative, designed to bring industrialization to the doorsteps of the people. 3, introducing strategic anchor industrial initiatives which will create new growth poles for the Ghanaian economy.
But as government attempt to achieve the hyped industrial revolution in the country, starting with the One District, One Factory policy, Chairman of the Council of State, Nana Oto Serebour, has some advice for government.
I may want the summit to consider the establishment of a technology and management pool of active or retired Ghanaians who are knowledgeable in the fields of, say, food industry, accounting, management, human resources, from which these industries can tap at a moderate fee to help them grow and be nurtured into full maturity.
Earlier in the day, President Akufo-Addo opened a training program for apparel manufacturer Dignity Do the Right Thing. The company, which exports to the United States market under the Africa Growth and Opportunity Act, AGWA, currently employs over 1,600 workforce with little or no educational background and plans to increase it to 5,000 in 2 years. The United States Ambassador to Ghana, Robert Jackson, is confident the new training expansion partnership between Dignity Do the Right Thing and USAID will create jobs for Ghanaians.
These 1,000 jobs are life-changing opportunities, not just for these hard-working women, but also for the thousands who depend on them. Their salaries will be reinvested locally in their children's education, in better meals for their families, in upgrading their homes, and in paying taxes that contribute back to Ghana's economy and development.
President Akufo-Addo also announced plans by government to finalize Ghana's new AGWA strategy and action plan to increase exports to the United States market to the tune of $500 million.
If you have any structure illegally sitting on any hospital land in Cape Coast, the warning is that it will be pulled down. Persons, including university lecturers, have illegally acquired these lands belonging to the Cape Coast Teaching Hospital and the Ankafor Psychiatric Hospital. Health Minister Kwaku Agyeman made Monday towards some of the hospital lands and warned illegal structures must be pulled down. Sir Kwame Boateng has the rest of the story.
These are hospital lands reserved for future expansion purposes. There are genuine documents confirming the hospital acquired them way back. Strangely, chiefs in these areas managed to demarcate portions for sale without issuing any supporting document to the buyers. The health minister and his entourage were led to one of such areas where a septic tank of all hospital waste is situated, yet that parcel of land has been encroached upon.
I don't think this will continue. Because before you are away, now look at where your septic tank is. That septic
for the hospital?
For the hospital, the bungalows, where the directors live. This is where the septic tank is supposed to capture the offense. And then you are putting up a property here. Nobody understands this. Some land should be reserved for public goods. And a hospital is a very serious, critical public good for all of us, right? So that even if the hospital doesn't own the land, hasn't got lease on it, and you are building, and government expresses interest in their property that, look, we want to use this place for a public good. There are instruments that government can use to even acquire your own property compulsorily. If we are building a road and your house is in there, what do? We demolish, we acquire and compensate you. But this one, it is government's land. We have lease on it, belonging to the Cape Coast Teaching Hospital. And then you are building on it. And they are asking you to stop. And you say, no, I will build. So we're looking at the possibility of getting these things down. Other than that, this will continue and continue and continue.
CEO of the Cape Coast Teaching Hospital, Dr. Daniel Asari, says they are hesitant to take any action without clearance from the regional minister.
So we told the regional minister that we're giving them 21 days. So we marked the...
So has it elapsed?
They elapsed. But we're going to take action. Then we went to the regional minister, told them that this is the action we are going to take. You are the political head. We need cover. And he said that we should put some human face. He's going to talk to them. He called the chief and all the encroachers and told them not to go to the land again. Some people put their blocks away. Some people took their properties away, but the others are recalcitrant. So now we are going to do selectively for the recalcitrant ones. You understand? Some people have understood, I'm gone. Some were lecturers, somewhere. But there are others who think that once they don't get their money, then they have to
When will that start?
Soon, when we get the green light.
The health minister, as part of his tour, also inspected some ongoing projects. At the dialysis center, the minister interacted with some patients who appealed to him for government support in the treatment of kidney disease.
Session 190.
Each dialysis session costs 190 cedis, and we come to the hospital twice a week, plus drugs and transport.
And the success of dialysis depends on the frequency. For what you do. Because now you cannot really...
Let's take on health, because the CEO of the Central Regional Hospital, Dr. Daniel Asari, has confirmed the increase in kidney disease cases the hospital keeps recording. He says most of the cases come from Galamsey areas and suspects that could be linked to chemicals used in their operations. Another report by Setquan Boateng.
We all know the traditional causes of kidney injuries, which brings people to the dialysis, and that has to do with hypertension, diabetes, where the kidney is the end organ. But of late, we are increasing getting people to the Cape Coast Teaching Hospital dialysis from Takwa, and they are becoming many in their numbers. But there's a growing research and publications that pollution of the environment has a role to play in the kidney injury cases. And with this Galamsey, which is so, going on in the Western region, most of the patients we talk to says they either drank from streams or Galamsey size or boreholes that were dark shallow. And there's a growing concern that mercury, which is one of the chemicals used to get gold, has gotten into some of the water bodies and is causing kidney injuries to some of the unsuspecting patients.
How often do they come here?
Now they come in a chronic state, and some come as far as in the end stage renal failure, and we put them on dialysis, and they have to do 3 times a week, but some can only afford sometimes 1 or 2. Now currently, the 10 machines that we have in Cape Coast Teaching Hospital, we have as many as 65 patients who are doing dialysis on those 10 machines. So we have even ordered for additional 5 to add to make 15 machines.
So the Galamsey is not only affecting the environment, our health too.
The environment and our health are interrelated. When we destroy the environment, we destroy ourselves. The water bodies are source of the only drinking water to all our communities in most of the rural areas. So I agree with you. The environment plays a key role in the kidney injuries and most metabolic disorders in our country.
Well, let's speak to an environmental analytical chemist at the KNUST on this disturbing issue. Dr. Godfrey Darko, thanks for your time. What are some of these chemicals used by the Galamseys? You heard the CEO of the Central Regional Hospital.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much, Madam. The line is a bit thin, but I got you. The point is that this Galamsey has use of mercury. If you to mercury, some effect to this.
We can barely hear you, Dr. Darko. If you can reposition yourself. I think we lost Dr. Darko. Hello, Dr. Darko. Hello, Dr. Darko.
Hello, Madam.
Yes, I think it's clearer now.
Very good.
Well, the lines are dropping again. Let's try and get Dr. Darko back on the line to speak to issues bothering on chemicals used by the Galamseyers. We'll also be trying to find out from him what specific diseases these chemicals could cause to the people who engage in this business. And to other stories, a businessman accused of murdering a mechanic at Alajo in Accra has been charged with murder. His colleague mechanics who thronged the court premises have described the process so far as satisfactory. Yabwedi was shot last week Tuesday following a misunderstanding with a motorist, Charles Frimpong, when the latter was confronted on why he had parked his vehicle wrongly. Police prosecutors got the court to change the charge against a businessman from attempted murder to murder. Charles Frimpong has been remanded to prison custody. Joining Joseph Akable was in court in our report.
A 33-year-old Richard Yabwedi, who passed on about a week ago. This has to do with a shooting incident that took place at Alajo, a mechanic. It has to do with a disagreement over parking space, and this has got the attention of the mechanics involved. He was brought over to the courtroom, the accused person, Charles Frimpong, today. Police prosecutors handling the case did ask that a court allows them to amend the charge sheet to read from attempted murder to murder. They had argued that at the time he was picked up and brought over to the courtroom, the deceased person was then alive, for which reason they decided to charge him with attempted murder. But this time around he has passed on, for which reason they asked that he be charged with murder. His lawyers have expressed concerns about the fact that he is unwell. The magistrate did direct that he should be provided the needed medical attention. And these are some of his colleagues who have made it here to the courtroom. Let me quickly engage some of them to try and understand from them what brings them over to the courtroom in the first place. Nano pay the Abansina Moipia.
I said the medical Union Diokuno no nurse and Monday near den Baba Court. And Lutina me Yabaha. Tinia should be Timu Asem. And himself a penny assassin. Yes, ye preparing. Ye tell you almost on Becca. Said ye dim round sono. Oku Union or Boni Tuono. Ye change general fair police on my fan. Sa Mranana or your person Mudiso. No more. I said the name of a coffin to try some necrosodo.
You see, baby says, I'm not serious, you know, the Sena, Momejuma, Sikoya, Hamuye Pana.
Hi, Sunday Monday, a month forecast is your say, Juma. You got down one near Kaino. You down one near Kaino.
So the first question I asked him was why exactly they had made it over to the courtroom, and he explained to me that it's because of the incident that happened. This one that they are following keenly, for which reason they came over. He says they exercised restraint when they apprehended the accused person. They didn't take the law into their own hands, so they expect that same law to be obeyed and taken through by the agencies handling this matter in terms of the court and the state prosecutors, for which reason they are here at the court. He also tells me that it has affected their work at the place. Monday morning they are supposed to be working, but they've made it to the courtroom and they are here to support the justice system, hoping that it indeed ends in the right way. So you heard him there saying whether rain or shine, they will make it over to the courtroom to observe proceedings. So the request for the charge sheet to be amended was granted by Magistrate Victoria Ganza, and hearing of the matter continues on August 30, where the state, if ready, will be expected to start prosecution against Charles Frimpong, who is accused of murdering Richard Yabwedi. Reporting for Joy News from the Abekan District Court, my name is Joseph Akable.
And in the studio here in Kokomlemle, Accra, my name is Aisha Ibrahim. Let's Let's settle for more in this bulletin. Now, a pro-National Democratic Congress group, Integrity Against Corruption, is warning that a continuous attack on the former president, Jerry John Rawlings, might lead to the party losing grassroots support in the Volta region. According to IAC, a spite on Mr. Rawlings, who they described as the moving spirit and energy of the party, is a fight against the grassroots of the NDC of the Volta region, a region which has the highest support for the NDC. Speaking at a press briefing in Agbozome in the Ketu North district of the Volta region, the spokesperson for IAC, Daniel Selom Hamenu, described the attacks by Mr. Obed Asamoah and a former Deputy Chief of Staff, Dr. Valerie Sawyer, on Mr. Rawlings as a war of integrity against corruption aimed at overshadowing the truth being revealed by Mr. Rawlings.
Mr. Rawlings, speaking at the annual Asafo Chifiama Festival in Ada, mentioned the erstwhile Mahama-led government was one of the regimes that witnessed high corruption practices and mismanagement. Mr. Rawlings' comments received a backlash from a former Deputy Chief of Staff, Dr. Valerie Sawyer, who criticized him for failing to comment on corrupt practices ongoing in the Akufo-Addo administration. A former chairman of the NDC, Obed Asamoah, thereafter congratulated Dr. Valerie Sawyer on her criticism of Mr. Rawlings. However, a pro-NDC group, Integrity Against Corruption, made up of grassroots supporters in the Volta region with unflinching support for the former president, chastised Dr. Asamoah for his comments. The spokesperson for IAC, Daniel Selom Hamenu, indicated such attacks on Mr. Rawlings, who he described as the moving spirit and energy of the party, would only lead to a deep-seated fracture within the NDC.
The Integrity Against Corruption believes strongly in the values and principles instituted by the former President Jerry John Rawlings as guiding principles vital for perpetuating good governance, rule of law, and justice.
Added, such developments are not healthy for a party that seeks to wrestle power from the governing New Patriotic Party in 2020, and appeal to the NDC's top hierarchy to find means of uprooting corrupt characters within the party.
Let's perpetually retire these corrupt characters from our party. This seed of corruption germinated in Kofori-Dua, and we continue to perpetuate it. Let's kill it now and save our party.
A grassroots member, Goldenberg Hovenu, noted Mr. Rawlings has been an inspiration for most party faithful, and a continuous public ridicule of him might cause the party great loss.
Most people, I think the old folks, he has been inspiring them so much in the party. And then I could say confidently that we wouldn't have some membership base if not for J.J. Rawlings.
Rector of the NDC Institute of Social Democracy, Dr. William Mahaji, has dismissed claims that the school is a money-making venture for the party and sidestepping accreditation. The NDC last week launched the Institute of Social Democracy to equip members with knowledge of fundamental principles of the party. Speaking on the Pulse with Gifty Ando-Apia, Dr. Haji said, even though the school is for its members, it is open to all, including members of the governing NPP.
It's open to all Ghanaians. You know, for some people, they're just seeking knowledge. And indeed, while we are teaching social democracy, we'll be teaching liberal democracy, so you'll be able to understand the difference. Okay. And therefore, if there's an MPP person out there who wants to come and study, why not? As long as he's interested in it. But we'll give preference to our people first. Our prime objective is to build capacity of our members to be more effective and efficient in the discharge of their responsibilities at all levels.
But you're going to make some money.
We will definitely make some money. We should make some money. We've talked to a number of institutions outside who have indicated that we should submit proposals. We've had support from Friedrich Ebert Stiftung, for instance, in doing a number of things. We have a huge diasporan population, our Ghanaian diasporan population, who have committed to supporting the work. It doesn't have to come in the form of money. It can come in the form of books, in the form of teaching and learning materials, or furniture. In fact, we're even at the point auction some facilities. If you did, we'll honor you with that. So we'll use a diversity of approaches to raise resources for that. If you're interested in us immortalizing your name, just bring some money. The core program will be the philosophy and the ideology of social democracy. You need to understand that it's an institution of governance and political economy. So you would definitely understand social democracy as a philosophy and as an ideology.
Addressing issues of accreditation, certification and fees, Dr. Haji said in a month, committees responsible will submit reports on the direction for the school, but for now, its preliminary courses do not require accreditation as they are more towards capacity building rather than academic knowledge acquisition.
We use different vehicles for delivering the programs. We're going to do workshops. We're even going to do town hall meetings to be able to share information with our constituents. We are going to do workshops. We are going to do conferences, but we're also going to do on-campus training programs. And then, of course, we're going to do web-based online training programs as well. So it's not a brick and mortar kind of arrangement initially. What we did last Thursday was to inaugurate, in addition, 4 committees: an academic affairs committee, an administration committee, a finance committee, and an estate committee. Now, these committees are going to work to produce the relevant reports that will enable us fully establish an institution. So yes, there's quite a very strong demand for it, but it is not because we are trying to avoid accreditation or we are trying to introduce things that are contradictory to what we are doing.
Within what timeline are you looking to graduate from a non-academic institute to a strictly academic and research institute?
You know, as I said, the Academic Affairs subcommittee of the Governing Council would come up with programs and a strategic plan. It will give us an indication of when we can mature enough and so we'll be working towards that in time, but I can't give that time now until that committee or all the committees submit their reports in a month's time.
Away from the NDC, the construction of a bigger tunnel that will link East Legon to Spintex Road, both suburbs of Accra, has started. Some portions, including sections after the Tema Motorway toll booth, have been cordoned off to make way for the new 9 to 10 meter tunnel. The project, which is expected to be completed in 10 months, may delay, according to a safety officer with Sonitra, Owusu Prempe. Mr. Prempe explains some fiber optic cables belonging to some telecommunication companies may delay the project. Upon completion, commuters will no longer have to be stuck on either side of the current one-way tunnel as they wait for traffic to flow in the opposition direction. The project is, however, expected to disrupt traffic on the Accra-Tema Motorway as the tunnel is dug underneath it. Maxwell Agbagba has the rest of the story.
Only the idea behind the whole project is to solve the traffic problem. So if you block the road, that means you've not solved the traffic problem. Okay. So what you have to do, like I said before, we are not going to block any road. Okay. The little space that we have on the motorway, we are going to make do with it. That's the reason why we shifted the traffic. We saw that the median is so wide enough, just like I was saying. The median is almost about 12 meters, but the carriageway is just about 7.3 meters, which means the median is wider than the carriageway. So we shift the traffic there, and I think it's flowing. We see it. What the next is, you're going to give us a chance so that we can start cutting. The new tunnel will be between 8 to 9 meters, okay, which the existing one that we see over there is just 3 meters. So that tells you that the new tunnel is bigger enough to take two traffic flows. That's it.
So are we going to have a new tunnel, one for entry, one for exit, or you're just going to construct a bigger one to take care of entry and an exit?
No. It's just one bigger one, bigger one of about 8 to 9 meters. Yeah, I think a minimum of 8 meters, so that the two traffic can even flow. Yeah.
So what then would happen to the old one?
Actually, the old one will be there, untouched, but we are not going to use because. According to history of the motorway, it was not meant for traffic flow. It was meant for a cattle, something. That this one is going to be. That's why it was built just a one lane. Yeah, but this one is just 2 lanes that can take the traffic to and from. So I think after the new tunnel, the new construction, the road will be shifted from the old one to the side. We will construct new road. Yeah, we'll construct a new road. We are not going to use the old one again. That's it. Yeah.
So, what time period do you envisage that you're going to be done with this construction?
In actual fact, we have a period of 10 months, but I don't know. Unless, let's say, natural things, natural things like natural phenomena like rainfalls or something, or the utility lines. We are dealing with a utility company. That's a problem. How they relocate their lines, the fiber optics that lead from Accra to Tema and so on and so forth. We're in touch with them for them to remove it. That's a problem. If for any delay, that will be the problems that we are going to be.
Fiber optics belonging to
MTN, Airtel, Tigo, all the telecommunications. The fiber optic is behind this place, the other side of the way. The fiber optic is there. So what we have to do is to allow them to come and relocate their fiber optic. And at the end of the day, we can also start excavating the other side. From this side, it's just the northern side of it. The second, we have to move to the other side, the southern part of it. The southern part is where it's affected so much with the fiber optic lines.